Hello everyone. I'm recording this after having finished my recording of book 2 of the Iliad. I'm doing this intro soft-spoken just because my voice is a little tired from the whispering, but I just wanted to say thank you for the subscriptions that I've had this past week, and I wanted to give a special shout out to the ASMR nerd, who is a wonderful ASMR artist here on YouTube and also a Twitch streamer. He recently made a custom video for me on his channel, and many of the subscribers that have found me in the past week came from a shout out that he gave me on that video. So I just wanted to thank the ASMR nerd for the shout out and welcome all of the new subscribers to this channel. It is my intention at this point to upload a long form video about an hour or so every Monday around 9 p.m. Central Time is when I plan to have them release. I'm also going to start doing some short story videos on Saturdays. So it will break the mold a little bit in that it's not exactly a myth, but the short stories are often more like fairy tales or other fiction, so I still think it's well within the context of this channel. So I just wanted to, again, thank the ASMR nerd and all the new subscribers that have clicked that button this week, and I look forward to getting to know all of you better. Please leave comments, ask questions. I'm happy to have conversations with everyone in the chat in my spare time. But until then, let's get into the video. Hello, and welcome. I've learned a bit from my last video last week, and we're going to actually have a tripod. One thing I noticed from last week's video is that the book was usually not anywhere near frame. So this time I have put my iPhone on an actual tripod, which I've bought since then. And hopefully that'll make it a lot easier for me to see if something is in frame or not. So, with that in mind, we are going to return to ancient Greece in the Iliad. Last week we left off at the end of book 1. So today, we're going to start in book 2. So last time, they set the stage by introducing some key characters, primarily Agamemnon and Achilles. And now, and I believe at the end of the chapter, Achilles spoke with his mother, who's a goddess, and his mother went to intervene with Zeus on his behalf. And now we're continuing 5 minutes, depending on how long it takes us to get through this, because it is rather late at night. But here we go. Now the other gods and the armed warriors on the plain slept soundly, but Zeus was wakeful, for he was thinking out again how to do honor to Achilles and destroy much people at the ships of the Achaeans. In the end, he deemed it would be best to send a lying dream to King Agamemnon. So he called one to him and said to it, "Lying dream, go to the ships of the Achaeans, into the tent of Agamemnon, and say to him word for word as I now bid you. Tell him to get the Achaeans instantly under arms, for he shall take Troy. There are no longer divided councils among the gods. Hera has brought them to her own mind, and woe betides the Trojans." The dream went when it had heard its message, and soon reached the ship of the Achaeans. It sought Agamemnon, son of Atreus, and found him in his tent, wrapped in a profound slumber. It moved over his head in the likeness of Nestor, son of Neleus, whom Agamemnon honored above all his counselors, and said, "You are sleeping, son of Atreus. One who has the welfare of his host and so much other care upon his shoulders should dock his sleep. Hear me at once, for I come as a messenger from Zeus, who though he be not near, yet takes thought of you and pities you. He bids you get the Achaeans instantly under arms, for you shall take Troy. There are no longer divided councils among the gods. Hera has brought them over to her own mind, and woe betides the Trojans at the hands of Zeus. Remember this, and when you wake, see that it does not escape you." The dream then left him, and he thought of things that were surely not to be accomplished. He thought that on that same day he was to take the city of Priam, but he little knew what was in the mind of Zeus, who had many another hard-fought fight in store alike for Danaans and Trojans. Then presently he woke, with the divine message still ringing in his ears. So he sat upright and put on his soft shirt so fair and new, and over this his heavy cloak. He bound his sandals onto his comely feet, and slung his silver-studded sword about his shoulders. Then he took the imperishable staff of his father and sallied forth to the ship of the Achaeans. The goddess Dawn now wended her way to vast Olympus, that she might herald day to Zeus and to the other immortals. And Agamemnon sent the criers around to call the people in assembly. So they called them, and the people gathered thereon. But first he summoned a meeting of the elders at the ship of Nestor, king of Pylos. And when they were assembled, he laid a cunning counsel before them. "My friends," said he, "I have had a dream from heaven in the dead of night, and its face and figure resembled none but Nestor's. It hovered over my head and said, 'You are sleeping, son of Atreus, one who has the welfare of his host, and so much other care upon his shoulders should dock his sleep. Hear me at once, for I am a messenger from Zeus, who though he be not near, yet takes thought of you and pities you. He bids you get the Achaeans instantly under arms, for you shall take Troy. There are no longer divided councils among the gods. Hera has brought them over to her own mind, and woe betides the Trojans at the hands of Zeus. Remember this." The dreams then vanished, and I awoke. Let us now, therefore, arm the sons of the Achaeans. But it will be well that I should first sound them, and tell them to fly with their ships, but do you others go among the host and prevent their doing so." He then sat down, and Nestor, the prince of Pylos, with all sincerity and goodwill addressed them thus. "My friends," said he, "princes and counselors of the Argives, if any other man of the Achaeans had told us of this dream, we should have declared it false, and would have had nothing to do with it. But he who has seen it is the foremost man among us. We must therefore set about getting the people under arms." With this, he led the way from the assembly, and the other sceptered kings rose with him in obedience to the word of Agamemnon. But the people pressed forward to hear. They swarmed like bees that sally from some hollow cave and flit in countless throng among the spring flowers. Bunched in knots and clusters, even so did the mighty multitude pour from ships and tents to the assembly, and range themselves upon the wide watered shore, while among them ran wildfire Rumor, the messenger of Zeus, urging them ever to the fore. Thus they gathered in a pell-mell of mad confusion, and the earth groaned under the tramp of men as the people sought their places. 9 heralds went crying about among them to stay their tumult, and bid them listen to the kings, till at last they were got into their several places, and ceased their clamor. Then King Agamemnon rose, holding his scepter. This was the work of Hephaestus, who gave it to Zeus the son of Cronus. Zeus gave it to Hermes, slayer of Argus, guide and guardian. King Hermes gave it to Pelops, the mighty charioteer, and Pelops to Atreus, shepherd of his people. Atreus, when he died, left it to Thyestes, rich in flocks. And Thyestes, in his turn, left it to be borne by Agamemnon, that he might be lord of all Argos and of the isles. Leaning then on his scepter, he addressed the Argives. "My friends," he said, "heroes, servants of Ares, the hand of heaven has been laid heavily upon me. Cruel Zeus gave me his solemn promise that I should sack the city of Priam before returning, but he has played me false, and is now bidding me go ingloriously back to Argos with the loss of much people. Such is the will of Zeus, who has laid many a proud city in the dust, as he will let yet lay others, for his power is above all. It will be a sorry tale hereafter that an Achaean host, at once so great and valiant, battled in vain against men fewer in number than themselves. But as yet the end is not in sight. Think that the Achaeans and Trojans have sworn to a solemn covenant, and that they have been numbered, the Trojans by the roll of their householders, and we by companies of 10. Think further that each of our companies desire to have a Trojan householder to pour out their wine. We are so greatly more in number that full many a company would have to go without its cupbearer. But they have in the town many allies from other places, and it is these that hinder me from being able to sack the rich city of Ilium. 9 of Zeus's years are gone. The timbers of our ships have rotted. Their tackling is sound no longer. Our wives and little ones at home look anxiously for our coming, but the work that we came hither to do has not been done. Now therefore, let us all do as I say. Let us sail back to our own land, for we shall not take Troy." With these words he moved the hearts of the multitude, so many of them as knew not the cunning counsel of Agamemnon. They surged to and fro like the waves of the Icarian Sea, when the east and south winds break from heaven's clouds to lash them, or as when the west winds sweeps over a field of corn and the ears bow beneath the blast. Even so were they swayed as they flew with loud cries towards the ships, and the dust from under their feet rose heavenward. They cheered each other on to draw the ships into the sea. They cleared the channels in front of them. They began taking away the stays from underneath them, and the welkin rang with their glad cries, so eager were they to return. Then surely the Argives would have returned after a fashion that was not fated. But Hera said to Athena, "Alas, daughter of Aegis-bearing Zeus, unweariable shall the Argives fly home to their own land over the broad sea, and leave Priam and the Trojans the glory of still keeping Helen, for whose sake so many of the Achaeans have died at Troy, far from their homes. Go about at once among the host, and speak fairly to them, man by man, that they draw not their ships into the sea." Athena was not slack to do her bidding. Down she darted from the topmost summits of Olympus, and in a moment she was at the ships of the Achaeans. Then she found Odysseus, peer of Zeus in council, standing alone. He had not as yet laid a hand upon his ship, for he was grieved and sorry. So she went close up to him and said, "Odysseus, noble son of Laertes, are you going to fling yourselves into your ships and be off home to your own land? In this way, will you leave Priam and the Trojans the glory of still keeping Helen, for whose sake so many of the Achaeans have died at Troy, far from their homes? Go about at once among the host, and speak fairly to them, man by man, that they draw not their ships into the sea." Odysseus knew the voice as that of the goddess. He flung his cloak from him and set off to run. His servant, Eurybates, a man of Ithaca, who waited on him, took charge of the cloak, whereon Odysseus went straight up to Agamemnon and received from him his ancestral imperishable staff. With this he went about among the ships of the Achaeans. Whenever he met a king or chieftain, he stood by him and spoke fairly. "Sir," said he, "this flight is cowardly and unworthy. Stand to your post and bid your people also keep their places. You do not yet know the full mind of Agamemnon. He was sounding us, and ere long will visit the Achaeans with his displeasure." We were not all of us at the council to hear what he then said, so to it lest he be angry and do us a mischief, for the pride of kings is great, and the hand of Zeus is with them. But when he came across any common man who was making a noise, he struck him with his staff and rebuked him, saying, "Sirrah, hold your peace and listen to better men than yourselves. You are a coward and no soldier. You are nobody either in fight or council. We cannot all be kings. It is not well that there should be many masters. One man must be supreme, one king to whom the son of scheming Cronus has given the scepter of sovereignty over you all." Thus masterfully did he go about among the host, and the people hurried back to the council from their tents and ships with a sound as with a thunder of surf when it comes crashing down upon the shore, and all the sea is in an uproar. The rest now took their seats, and kept to their own several places. But Thersites still went on wagging his unbridled tongue, a man of many words, and those unseemly, a monger of sedition, a railer against all who were in authority, who cared not what he said, so that he might set the Achaeans in a laugh. He was the ugliest man of all those that came before Troy, bandy-legged, lame of one foot, with his two shoulders rounded and hunched over his chest. His head ran up to a point, but there was little hair on the top of it. Achilles and Odysseus hated him worst of all, for it was with them that he was most wont to wrangle. Now, however, with a shrill, squeaky voice, he began heaping his abuse on Agamemnon. The Achaeans were angry and disgusted, yet nonetheless he kept on brawling and bawling at the son of Atreus. "Agamemnon," he cried, What ails you now, and what more do you want? Your tents are filled with bronze and with fair women, for whenever we take a town, we give you the pick of them. Would you have yet more gold, which some Trojan is to give you as a ransom for his son, when I or another Achaean has taken him prisoner? Or is it some young girl to hide away and lie with? It is not well that you, the ruler of the Achaeans, should bring them into such misery. Weakling cowards, women rather than men, let us sail home and leave this fellow here at Troy to stew in his own meeds of honor and discover whether we were of any service to him or no. Achilles is a much better man than he is, and see how he has treated him, robbing him of his prize and keeping it himself. Achilles takes it meekly and shows no fight. If he did, son of Atreus, you would never again insult him. Thus railed Thersites, but Odysseus at once went up to him and rebuked him sternly. Check your glib tongue, Thersites, said he, and babble not a word further. Chide not with princes when you have none to back you. There is no viler creature come before Troy with the sons of Atreus. Drop this chatter about kings, and neither revile them, nor keep harping about going home. We do not yet know how things are going to be, nor whether the Achaeans are to return with good success or evil. How dare you jibe at Agamemnon because the Danaans have awarded him so many prizes? I tell you, therefore, and it shall surely be, that if I again catch you talking such nonsense, I will either forfeit my own head and be no more called father of Telemachus, or I will take you, strip you stark naked, and whip you out of the assembly till you go blubbering back to the ships. On this he beat him with his staff about the back and shoulders till he dropped and fell a-weeping. The golden scepter raised a bloody wheal on his back, so he sat down frightened and in pain, looking foolish as he wiped the tears from his eyes. The people were sorry for him, yet they laughed heartily, and one would turn to his neighbor, saying, Odysseus has done many a good thing ere now in fight and council, but he never did the Argives a better turn than when he stopped this fellow's mouth from parting further. He will give the kings no more of his insolence. Thus said the people. Then Odysseus rose, scepter in hand, and Athena in the likeness of a herald bade the people be still, that those who were far off might hear him and consider his counsel. He therefore, with all sincerity and goodwill, addressed them thus. King Agamemnon, the Achaeans are for making you a byword among all mankind. They forget the promise they made you when they set out from Argos, that you should not return till you had sacked the town of Troy. And like children or widowed women, they murmur and set off homeward. True it is that they have toil enough to be disheartened. A man chafes at having to stay away from his wife even for a single month when he is on shipboard, at the mercy of wind and sea. But it is now 9 long years that we have been kept here. I cannot therefore blame the Achaeans if they turn restive. Still, we shall be shamed if we go home empty after so long a stay. Therefore, my friends, be patient yet a little longer, that we may learn whether the prophecies of Calchas were false or true. All who have not since perished must remember, as though it were yesterday or the day before, how the ships of the Achaeans were detained in Aulis when we were on our way hither to make war on Priam and the Trojans. We were ranged round about a fountain, offering hecatombs to the gods upon their holy altars, and there was a fine plane tree, from which there welled a stream of pure water. Then we saw a prodigy, for Zeus sent a fearful serpent out of the ground, with blood-red stains upon its back, and it darted from under the altar onto the plane tree. Now there was a brood of young sparrows quite small upon the topmost bough, peeping out from under the leaves, 8 in all, and their mothers that hatched them made 9. The servant ate the poor cheeping things, while the old bird flew about lamenting But the serpent threw his coils about her and caught her by the wing as she was screaming. Then, when he had eaten both the sparrows and her young, the god who had sent him made him become a sign, for the son of scheming Cronus turned him into stone, and we stood there wondering that which had come to pass. Seeing then that such a fearful portent had broken in upon our hecatombs, Calchas forthwith declared to us the oracles of heaven. Why, Achaeans, said he, are you thus speechless? Zeus has sent us this sign long in coming, and long ere it be fulfilled, though its fame shall last forever. As the serpent ate the 8 fledglings, and the sparrow that hatched them, which makes 9, so shall we fight 9 years at Troy, but in the 10th shall take the town. This was what he said, and now it is all coming true. Stay here, therefore, all of you, till we take the city of Priam. On this the Argives raised a shout till the ships rang again with the uproar. Nestor, knight of Gerene, then addressed them. Shame on you, he cried, to stay talking here like children when you should fight like men. Where are our covenants now, and where the oaths that we have taken? Shall our counsels be flung into the fire with our drink offerings and the right hands of fellowship wherein we have put our trust? We waste time in words, and for all our talking here shall be no further forward. Stand therefore, son of Atreus, by your own steadfast purpose. Lead the Argives on to battle, and leave this handful of men to rot who scheme and scheme in vain to get back to Argos, ere they have learned whether Zeus to be true or a liar. For the mighty son of Cronus surely promised that we should succeed. When we Argives set sail to bring death and destruction upon the Trojans, he showed us favorable signs by flashing his lightning on our right hands. Therefore, let none make haste to go till he has first lain with the wife of some Trojan, and avenged the toil and sorrow that it has suffered for the sake of Helen. Nevertheless, if any man is in such haste to be home again, let him lay his hand to his ship that he may meet his doom in the sight of all. But, O king, consider and give ear to my counsel. For the word, that I may not be neglected lightly, divide your men, Agamemnon, into their several tribes and clans, that clans and tribes may stand by and help one another. If you do this, and if the Achaeans obey you, you will find out who, both chiefs and people, are brave and who are cowards, for they will vie against the other. Thus you shall also learn whether it is through the counsel of heaven or the cowardice of man that you shall fail to take the town. And Agamemnon answered, Nestor, you have again outdone the sons of the Achaeans in counsel. Would by Father Zeus, Athena, and Apollo that I had among them 10 more such counselors, as the city of King Priam would then soon fall beneath our hands, and we should sack it. But the son of Cronus afflicts me with bootless wrangling and strife. Achilles and I are quarreling about this girl, in which matter I was the first to offend. If we can be of one mind again, the Trojans will not starve off destruction for a day. For therefore get your morning meal, that our hosts may join in the fight. Whet well your spears, see well to the ordering of your shields, give good feeds to your horses, and look your chariots carefully over, that we may do battle the livelong day. For we shall have no rest, not for a moment, till night falls to apart us. The bands that bear your shields shall be wet with the sweat upon your shoulders. Your hands shall weary upon your spears. Your horses shall steam in front of your chariots. And if I see any man shirking the fight or trying to keep out of it at the ships, there shall be no help for him, but he shall be a prey to dogs and vultures. Thus he spoke, and the Achaeans roared applause, as when the waves ran high up before the blast of the south wind, and break on some lofty headland, dashing against it and buffeting it without ceasing as the storms from every quarter drive them. Even so did the Achaeans rise and hurry in all directions to their ships. There they lighted their fires at their tents and got dinner, offering sacrifice every man to one or other of the gods, and praying each one of them that he might live to come out of the fight. Agamemnon, king of men, sacrificed a fat 5-year-old bull to the mighty son of Cronus, and invited the princes and elders of his host. First, he asked Nestor and King Idomeneus, then the 2 Ajaxes, and the son of Tydeus, and sixthly, Odysseus, peer of gods in council. But Menelaus came of his own accord, for he knew how busy his brother then was. They stood round the bowl with the barley meal in their hands, and Agamemnon prayed, saying, Zeus, most glorious, supreme, that dwellest in heaven and ridest upon the storm cloud, grant that the sun may not go down, nor the night fall till the palace of Priam is laid low, and its gates are consumed with fire. Grant that my sword may pierce the shirt of Hector about his heart, and that full many of his comrades may bite the dust as they fall dying around them. Thus he prayed, but the son of Cronus would not fulfill his prayer. He accepted the sacrifice, yet nonetheless increased their toil continually. When they had done praying and sprinkling the barley meal upon the victim, they drew back its head, killed it, and then flayed it. They cut out the thigh bones, wrapped them round in 2 layers of fat, and set pieces of raw meat on the top of them. These they burned upon the split logs of firewood. But they spitted the inward meats and held them in the flames to cook. When the thigh bones were burned and they tasted the inward meats, they cut the rest up small, put the pieces upon spits, roasted them till they were done, and drew them off. Then, when they had finished their work and the feast was ready, they ate it, and every man had his full share, so that all were satisfied. As soon as they had enough to eat and drink, Nestor, knight of Gerene, began to speak. King Agamemnon, said he, let us not stay talking here, nor be slack in the work that heaven has put into our hands. Let the heralds summon the people to gather at their several ships. We will then go about among the host, that we may begin fighting at once. Thus did he speak, and Agamemnon heeded his words. He at once set the criers round to call the people in assembly. So they called them, and the people gathered thereon. The chiefs about the son of Atreus chose their men and marshaled them, while Athena went among them holding her priceless aegis that knows neither age nor death. From it there waved 100 tassels of pure gold, all deftly woven, and each one of them worth 100 oxen. With this she darted furiously everywhere among the hosts of the Achaeans, urging them forward, and putting courage into the heart of each, so that he might fight and do battle without ceasing. Thus war became sweeter in their eyes, even than returning home in their ships. As when some great forest fire is raging upon a mountain top, and its light is seen afar, even so as they marched, the gleam of their armor flashed up into the firmament of heaven. I apologize if you noticed a cut in the video. I had something that I had to take care of rather quickly, but we'll continue on. They were like great flocks of geese or cranes or swans on the plain about the waters of Cayster, that wing their way hither and thither, glorying in the pride of flight, and crying as they settle till the fen is alive with their screaming. Even thus did their tribes pour from ships and tents onto the plain of the Scamander, and the ground rang as brass under the feet of men and horses. They stood as thick upon the flower-bespangled field as leaves that bloom in summer. As countless swarms of flies buzz around a herdsman's homestead in the time of spring, when the pails are drenched with milk, even so did the Achaeans swarm onto the plain to charge the Trojans and destroy them. The chiefs disposed their men this way, and that before the fight began, drafting them out as easily as goat herds draft their flocks when they have got mixed while feeding. And among them went King Agamemnon, with a head and face like Zeus, the Lord of Thunder, a waist like Ares, and a chest like that of Poseidon, as some great bull that lords it over the herds upon the plains. Even so did Zeus make the son of Atreus stand peerless among the multitude of heroes. And now, O Muses, dwellers in the mansions of Olympus, tell me, for you are goddesses, and are in all places so that you see all things, while we know nothing but by report, who were the chiefs and princes of the Danaans. As for common soldiers, they were so many that I could not name every single one of them, though I had 10 tongues, and though my voice failed not, and my heart were of bronze within me, unless you, O Olympian Muses, daughters of Aegis-bearing Zeus, were to recount them to me. Nevertheless, I will tell the captains of the ships and all the fleet together. Peneleos, Lytus, Arcesilaus, Prothoenor, and Clonius were captains of the Boeotians, or the Boeotians, I believe might be how it's pronounced. These were they that dwelt in Hyria and rocky Aulis, and who held Sconis, Scolis, and the highlands of Eteonas, with Thespia, Graia, and the fair city of Mycalesus. They also held Harma, Elysium, and Erythrae, and they held Elion, Hyle, or maybe Hyli, and Pateon, Okalea, and the strong fortress of Median, Cope, Eutresis, and Thisbe, the haunt of doves, Coronea, and the pastures of Haliartus, Platea, and Glissus, the fortress of Thebes the less, holy Onchestus, with its famous grove of Neptune, Arne, rich in vineyards, Medea, sacred Nisa, and Anthedon upon the sea. From these there came 50 ships, and in each there were 120 young men of the Boeotians. Ascalaphus and Ialmenus, sons of Ares, led the people that dwelt in Aspledon and Orchomenus, the realm of Minyas. Astyache, a noble maiden, bore them in the house of Actor, son of Azias, for she had gone with Ares secretly into an upper chamber, and he had lain with her. With these there came 30 ships. The Phocaeans were led by Schedius and Epistrophus, sons of mighty Iphitus, and the son of Naubolus. These were they that held Kyparissus, rocky Pytho, holy Crissa, Daulis, and Panopeus. They also that dwelt in Anemorea and Iampolis, and about the waters of the river Cephisus and Lille, by the springs of the Cephisus. With their chieftains came 40 ships, and they marshaled the forces of the Phocaeans, which were stationed next to the Boeotians on their left. Ajax, the fleet son of Oileus, commanded the Locrians. He was not so great, nor nearly so great, as Ajax, the son of Telamon. He was a little man, and his breastplate was made of linen, but in use of the spear he excelled all the Hellenes and the Achaeans. These dwelt in Cainus, Opus, Caliaris, Bessa, Scarphe, Fair Augea, Tarphi, and Thronium, about the river Boagrius. With him there came 40 ships of the Locrians who dwell beyond Oboa. The fierce Abantes held Oboa with its cities, Chalcis, Eretria, Ischia, rich in vines, Carinthus upon the sea, and the rocky perched town of Dium. With them were also the men of Carsitis, I believe that might be Charistus, and Styra. Elephanor of the race of Ares was in command of these. He was son of Chalcodon and chief over all the Abantes. With him they came, fleet of foot and wearing their long hair behind, brave warriors who would ever strive to tear open the corslets of their foes with their long ashen spears. Of these there came 50 ships, and they that held the strong city of Athens, the people of great Erechtheus, who was born of the soil itself. But Zeus's daughter, Athena, fostered him and established him at Athens in her own rich sanctuary. There, year by year, the Athenian youths worship him with sacrifices of bulls and rams. These were commanded by Menestheus, son of Petios. No man living could equal him in the marshalling of chariots and foot soldiers. Nestor could alone rival him, for he was older. With him there came 50 ships. Ajax brought 12 ships from Salamis and stationed them alongside those of the Athenians. The men of Argos again, and those who held the walls of Tiryns, with Hermione and Asine, or Asine perhaps, upon the gulf, Troezene, Ione, and the vineyard lands of Epidaurus, the Achaean youths, moreover, who came from Aegina and Masses. These were led by Diomede of the loud battle cry, and Sthenolis, son of famed Capaneus. With him in command was I'm having trouble with that name. Euryalus, son of King Megistius, son of Talaus. But Diomed was chief over them all. With these there came 80 ships. Those who held the strong city of Mycenae, rich Corinth, and Cleone, Orne, Erythria, and Sicyon, where Adrastus reigned of old, Hyperesia, Gonoessa, and Pelene, Aegium, and all the coastland around about Hellas. These sent 100 ships under the command of King Agamemnon, son of Atreus. His force was far both finest and most numerous, and in their midst was the king himself, all glorious in his armor of gleaming bronze, foremost among the heroes, for he was the greatest king, and had most men under him. And those that dwelt in Lacedaemon, lying low among the hills, Pharis, Sparta, with Messe, the haunt of doves, Bricae, Augiae, Amyclae, and Helos, the sea, Las, moreover, and Oetelus. These were led by Menelaus, of the loud battle cry, brother to Agamemnon, and of them they were 60 ships, drawn up apart from the others. Among them went Menelaus himself, strong in zeal, urging his men to fight, for he longed to avenge the toil and sorrow that he had suffered for the sake of Helen. The men of Pylos and Arene and Thryum, where is the ford of the river Alpheus, strong Ipe, Sipar, some of these names are really difficult, Cyparisius, and Amphigenea, Telium, Helos, and Dorium, where the Muses met Thamyrus and stilled his minstrelsy forever. He was returning from Oechalia, where Eurytus lived and reigned, and boasted that he would surpass even the Muses, daughters of Aegis-bearing Zeus, if they should sing against him, whereon they were angry and maimed him. They robbed him of his divine power of song, and thenceforth he could strike the lyre no more. These were commanded by Nestor, knight of Gerene, and with him there came 90 ships. And those that held Arcadia under the high mountain of Cyllene, near the tomb of Apitus, where the people fight hand to hand, the men of Phaneus also, and Archomenus, rich in flocks, of Rhipe, Stratiae, and Bleak and Nispe, of Tegea and fair Mantinea, of Stymphelus and Parrhasia. Of these King Agapenor, son of Ancaeus, was commander, and they had 60 ships. Many Arcadians, good soldiers, came in each one of them, but Agamemnon found the ships in which to cross the sea, for they were not a people that occupied the business upon the waters. The men, moreover, of Buprasium and of Elis, so much of it as is enclosed between Myrsinus upon the seashore, the rock Oline, and Elysium. These had 4 leaders, and each of them had 10 ships, with many Epeans on board. Their captains were Amphimachus and Thalpius, the one son of Theatus, and the other of Eurytus, both of the race of Actor. The 2 others were Diores, son of Amarinces, and Polyxenus, son of King Agasthenes, son of Augeas, and those of Dulichium, with the sacred Achaean islands, who dwelt beyond the Sea of Elis. These were led by Meges, peer of Ares, and the son of valiant Phyleus, dear to Zeus, who quarreled with his father and went to settle in Dulichium. With him there came 40 ships. Odysseus led the brave Cephallenians, who held Ithaca, Neritum with its forests, Crocylea, rugged Aegyptus, Samos, and Zacynthus, with the mainland also that was over against the islands. These were led by Odysseus, peer of Zeus in council, and with him there came 12 ships. Thoas, son of Andremon, commanded the Aetolians, who dwelt in Pleuron, Olenus, Pylene, Chalcus by the sea, and rocky Calydon, for the great king Oeneus had now no living sons and was himself dead, as was also golden-haired Meleager, who had been set over the Aetolians to be their king, and with Thoas there came 40 ships. The famous spearsman Idomeneus led the Cretans, who held Knossos and the well-walled city of Gortys, Lyctus also, Miletus, and Lycastus, that lies upon the chalk, the populous towns of Phaestus and Rhytium, with the other peoples that dwelt in the 100 cities of Crete. All these were led by Idomeneus and by Meriones, peer of murderous Ares, and with these there came 80 ships. Tlepolemus, son of Heracles, a man of both brave and large of stature, brought 9 ships of lordly warriors from Rhodes. These dwelt in Rhodes, which is divided among the 3 cities of Lindus, Ielysus, and Camyrus, that lies upon the chalk. These were commanded by Tlepolemus, son of Heracles, by Astyochea, whom he had carried off from Ephyra on the river Celius, after sacking many cities of valiant warriors. When Tlepolemus grew up, he killed his father's uncle, Lysimnius, who had been a famous warrior in his time, but was then grown old. On this he built himself a fleet, gathered a great following, and fled beyond the sea, for he was menaced by the other sons and grandsons of Heracles. After a voyage, during which he suffered great hardship, he came to Rhodes, where the people divided into 3 communities, according to their tribes, and were dearly loved by Zeus, the Lord of gods and men, wherefore the son of Cronus showed down great riches upon them. And Nireus brought 3 ships from Cyme. Nireus, who was the handsomest man that came upon Ilium of all the Danaans after the son of Peleus, but he was a man of no substance, and had but a small following. And those that held Nacirus, Carpathus, and Cassus, with Cos, the city of Eurypylus, and the Caledonian islands, these were commanded by Phidipus and Antiphus, 2 sons of King Thessalus, the son of Heracles, and with them there came 30 ships. Those again who held Pelasgic Argos, Alos, Alope, and Trachis, and those of Pythia and Hellas, the land of fair women, who were called Myrmidons, Hellenes, and Achaeans. These had 50 ships, over which Achilles was in command. But they now took no part in war, inasmuch as there was no one to marshal them, for Achilles stayed by the ships, furious about the loss of the girl Briseis, whom he had taken from Lyrnessus at his own great peril. When he had sacked Lyrnessus and Thebe, and had overthrown Mynes, and Epistrophus, son of King Evenor, son of Celebes. For her sake Achilles was still grieving, but ere long he was again to join them. And those that held Phyllis, and the flowery meadows of Pyrrhasus, sanctuary of Demeter, Iton, mother of sheep, Antrim upon the sea, and Delium, that lies upon the grasslands. Of these brave I butchered that. Of these brave, Protesilaus, maybe, had been captain while he was yet alive, but he was now lying under the earth. He had left a wife behind him in Phyllis to tear her cheeks in sorrow, and his house was only half finished, for he was slain by a Dardanian warrior while leaping foremost of the Achaeans upon the soil of Troy. Still, though his people mourned their chieftain, they were not without a leader, for Podarces of the race of Ares marshaled them. He was son of Iphiclus, rich in sheep. He was the son of Phylacus, and he was own brother to Protesilaus, only younger, Protesilaus being at once the elder and the more valiant. For the people were not without a leader, though they mourned him whom they had lost. With him there came 40 ships, and those that held Pherae by the Boebian lake, with Boebi, Glaphyrae, and the populous city of Iolcus. These were their 11 ships, were led by Eumelus, son of Admetus, whom Alcestis bore to him, loveliest of the daughters of Peleus. And and Thalmassia, with Meliboea and rugged Olazon. These were led by the skillful archer Philoctetes, and they had 7 ships, each with 50 oarsmen, all of them good archers. But Philoctetes was lying in great pain on the island of Lemnos, where the sons of the Achaeans left him, for he had been bitten by a poisonous water snake. There he lay sick and sorry, and full soon did the Argives come to miss him. But his people, though they felt his loss, were not leaderless, for Medon, the bastard son of Oileus by Rhene, set them in array. Those again of Tricca and the stony region of Ithome, and they that held Oechalia, the city of Oechalian Eurytus. These were commanded by the 2 sons of Asclepius, skilled in the art of healing, Podalirius and Machaon, and with them there came 30 ships. The men, moreover, of Ormenius, and by the fountain of Hypereia, with those that held Asterius, and the white crests of Titanus. These were led by Eurypylus, the son of Euaemon, and with them there came 40 ships. Those that held Argissa, and Gertone, Orthe, Elone, and the white city of Oluson. Of these brave Polypoetes was the leader. He was son of Pirithous, who was son of Zeus himself. For Hippodamia bore him to Pirithous on the day when he took his revenge on the shaggy mountain savages and drove them from Mount Pelion to the Itheses. But Polypoetes, I'm sorry, that name's weird. But Polypoetes was not sole in command, for with him was Leontius of the race of Ares, who was son of Coronus, the son of Caeneus, and with these there came 40 ships. Guneus brought 22 ships from Cyphus, and he was followed by the Ennians and the valiant Peribe, who dwelt with wintry Dodona, and held the lands round the lovely river Titaresius, which sends its waters into the Peneus. They do not mingle with the silver eddies of the Peneus, but flow on the top of them like oil, for the Titaresius is a branch of dread Orcus and of the river Styx. Of the Magnetes, Prothous, son of Tenthredon, was commander. They were they that dwelt about the river Peneus and Mount Pelion. Prothous, fleet of foot, was their leader, and with him there came 40 ships. Such were the chiefs and princes of the Danaans, who then, O Muse, was the foremost, whether man or horse, among those that followed after the sons of Atreus. Of the horses, those of the son of Phares were by far the finest. They were driven by Eumelus, and were as fleet as birds. They were of the same age and color, and perfectly matched in height. Apollo of the silver bow had bred them in Perea, both of them mares and terrible as Ares in battle. Of the men, Ajax, son of Telamon, was much the foremost, so long as Achilles' anger lasted, for Achilles excelled him greatly, and he also had better horses. But Achilles was now holding aloof at his ships by reason of his quarrel with Agamemnon, and his people passed their time upon the seashore, throwing discs or aiming with spears at a mark, and in archery. Their horses stood each by his own chariot, clamping lotus and wild celery. The chariots were housed under cover, but their owners, for lack of leadership, wandered hither and thither about the hosts, and went not forth to fight. Thus marched the hosts like a consuming fire, and the earth groaned beneath them, as when the Lord of Thunder is angry and lashes the land about Typhus among the Arami. say typhus lies. Even so, did the earth groan beneath them as they sped over the plains. And now Iris, fleet as the wind, was sent by Zeus to tell the bad news among the Trojans. They were gathered in assembly, old and young, at Priam's gate, and Iris came close up to Priam, speaking with the voice of Priam's son, Polites, who, being fleet of foot, was stationed as watchman for the Trojans on the tomb of old that's another weird one. Aeacites, to look out for any sally of the Achaeans. In his likeness Iris spoke, saying, Old man, you talk idly as in time of peace, while war is at hand. I have been in many a battle, but never yet saw such a host as is now advancing. They are crossing the plain to attack the city as thick as leaves, or as the sands of the sea. Hector, I charge you above all others, do as I say. There are many allies dispersed about the city of Priam from distant places and speaking divers tongues. Therefore, let each chief give orders to his own people, setting them severally in array, or severely, sorry. Actually, I'm not sure what that word is. Severally, I think, in array, and leading them forth to battle. Thus she spoke, but Hector knew that it was the goddess, and at once broke up the assembly. The men flew to arms, all the gates were opened, and the people thronged through them, horse and foot, with the tramp, as of a great multitude. Now there is a high mound before the city, rising by itself upon the plain. Men call it Bataia, or maybe Bataille. But the gods know that it is the tomb of lithe Myrine. Here the Trojans and their allies divided their forces. Priam's son, great Hector of the gleaming helmet, commanded the Trojans, and with him were arrayed by far the greatest number, and most valiant of those were longing for the fray. The Dardanians were led by brave Aeneas, whom Aphrodite born to Anchises, when she, goddess though she was, had lain with him upon the mountain slopes of Ida. He was not alone, for with him were the two sons of Antenor, Orsilochus and Acamas, both skilled in all the arts of war. Just a quick note, I noticed Aeneas here. Assuming that this is the one and only character named Aeneas in this book, he is the namesake of another ancient mythology called the Iliad. I believe it's written by Virgil, who was a Roman poet, or maybe a historian of a sort. It is almost certainly fiction, but the Iliad is one of the possible mythologies about the founding of the city of Rome. So I might read that at some point, because I've actually never read it and I've always wanted to. In any case, we're starting right here. They that dwelt in Selea, under the lowest spurs of Mount Ida, men of substance, who drink the limpid waters of the Aesepus and are of Trojan blood. These were led by Pandarus, son of Lycaon, whom Apollo had taught to use the bow. They that held Adrastea in the land of Apasus, with Batia and the high mountain of Terea. These were led by Adrastus and Amphius, whose breastplate was of linen. These were the sons of Merops of Percote, who excelled in all kinds of divination. He told them not to take part in the war, but they gave him no heed, for fate lured them to destruction. They that dwelt about Percote and Bractius, with Sestos, Abydos, and Arisbe. These were led by Asius, son of Hyrtacus, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, a brave commander. Asius, the son of Hyrtacus, whom his powerful dark bay steeds of the breed that comes from the river Celius had brought from Arisbe. Hippothous led the tribes of Pelasgian spearmen who dwelt in fertile Larissa, Hippotheus and Peleus of the race of Ares, 2 sons of the Pelasgian Lethus, son of Tutamus. Acamas and the warrior Pyrrhus commanded the Thracians and those that came from beyond the mighty stream of the Hellespont. Euphemus, son of Troezenus, the son of Chios, was captain of the Caiconian spearmen. Pyrachemes led the Paeonian archers from distant Amydon by the broad waters of the river Axius, the fairest that flow upon the earth. The Paphlagonians were commanded by stout-hearted Pylamenes from Enetea, where the mules run wild in herds. These were they that held Cytorus and the country round Sesamus, with the cities by the river Parthenius, Cromna, Aegialus, and lofty Erythini. Odius and Epistrophus were captains over the Helazoni from distant Alabi, where there are mines of silver. Chromis and Enomus, the augur, led the Mysians, but his skill in augury availed not to save him from destruction, for he fell by the hand of the fleet descendant of Acus in the river, where he slew also others of the Trojans. Phorcus again and noble Ascanius led the Phrygians from the far country of Ascania, or Ascania, and both were eager for the fray. Mesthales and Antiphus commanded the Meonians, sons of Telemenes, born to him of the Gygaean lake. These led the Meonians who dwelt under Mount Molus. Nastes led the Carians, men of strange speech. These held Miletus and the wooded mountains of Phytheres, with the waters of the river Meander and the lofty crests of Mount Mycale. These were commanded by Nastes and Amphimachus, the brave sons of Nomion. He came into the fight with gold about him, like a girl. Fool that he was, his gold was of no avail to save him, for he fell in the river by the hand of the fleet descendant of Icus, and Achilles bore away his gold. Sarpedon and Glaucus led the Lycians from their distant land by the eddying waters of Xanthus. And that concludes Book 2 of the Iliad. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. We have quite a ways to go still in the Iliad, but I am enjoying reading it, so I think I will continue this for the time being. I think I mentioned this earlier in the video, but I think on Saturdays I'm going to upload some very short videos, maybe 15, 20 minutes, very brief, with some short stories, just for the sake of adding some variety to the channel, and also to upload a little more often than just once a week. So I'm going to do 2 a week now. One that'll be longer, like this, for Mythical Mondays, but then a shorter one for Saturdays. I'm not sure what I'll call that series yet, but you'll find out this Saturday. With that in mind, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Increase.